Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Angel, and today we're going to be doing some more Victorian inspired Christmas DIYs. For this project, I'm going to be using this thrifted metal frame that I got. It also had this pretty nice thick chipboard backing for it. So I'm actually just going to reuse that for this project. As for the frame, I'm going to take this outside and just spray paint that with a little bit of my Rust-Oleum gold spray paint. And I'm going to start by painting that little chipboard piece with a couple coats of my red paint. This is Apple Barrel acrylic paint in the color Barn Red, and I just really love how deep and dark this dries down. So once that's all dry, then I'm going to use this damask stencil that I got from Amazon, and I'm going to start at the very front and just work my way down this little chipboard with that stencil and some white chalk paint. This is honestly one of my favorite stencils, so I'll make sure to link it for you below. So once that's all dry, then I'm going to grab these nutcracker molds that I also got from Amazon. These are the larger ones to my smaller ones that I've used in a previous video. So I'm just going to grab some air dry clay, and I'm going to make 3 of these molds to put on that chipboard. Once I had all 3 made, then I am just going to kind of line them up using my ruler and make sure that that's even on both sides, and then just kind of scoot the 2 on the outside over until I was happy with the placement. And I am going to attach these with some gel super glue before they actually dry down and harden. That way I can maneuver their legs a little bit and make them straight. This next little project is super simple. I just grabbed a bunch of books in the color scheme that I'm going for Christmas, greens and reds, and then I have this darker tan one in the center just for a little bit of different interest. But I'm going to use this Scotch removable putty stuff and some of Dollar Tree's little Christmas trees that come in the packages of quite a few of them, and they have varying sizes in the packages. So I'm just going to grab a few of those in the different colors that they have, and I'm going to add some of this little sticky putty stuff on the bottom of the Christmas trees and just pop them right on top of my books. I like this option instead of gluing it because it's not permanent, but it will help your trees stay in place. And then to finish it off, I just added some gold velvet ribbon. If you wanted to, you could definitely add a little Christmas card down in the ribbon or a Victorian Santa Claus photo, but for mine, I just left it like this. I definitely wanted to make a painting this year for Christmas, just like I did last year. But this time I wanted to do a Christmas tree, so I grabbed a little canvas, some water, and then some acrylic paints. I'm just using some browns, tans, green, black, and white for this. I'm going to dip my paintbrush down into that water, and I'm just going to kind of mix up that lighter cream color with a darker brown color and just really paint this onto the canvas. Add in some more dark. It really doesn't matter because we're going to blend this all in. I'm actually using a makeup brush to do this. This is just a clean old makeup brush that I had, but it actually works great to blend in your colors. So once I have that background color all blended in, then I'm going to move on and do a little bit of grass. So I'm mixing some dark brown with my green color. I think that's Kelly green that I'm using, and I'm just going to paint the ground with this. And once I get this on here, then I'm going to add in a little bit of black. And again, my paintbrush is still wet, but after I add a little bit of black to that, just to deepen it and darken it, then I'm going to take that makeup brush and blend that in again. It was at this point that I decided to kind of change up the background a little bit. It was leaning a little too tan and I wanted it more of a grayish green color. So the best part about this is you can just go in and experiment, and if you don't like something, you can always just paint over it. Once I was happy with it, I just let that completely dry, and then I'm going to grab this rounded brush, or also called a filbert brush, and I'm going to dip it down into some brown paint, and I'm just going to tap this onto the canvas to start making my trunk and the limbs for my Christmas tree. And again, you're just barely tapping onto the canvas and just kind of figuring out where I wanted my limbs to be. Then using that same brush, I'm going to mix up a little bit of green and brown to dull this green down a little bit, and then I'm just going to go right back in, do the same tapping motion over those limbs that I just created, filling this in with the greenery for the Christmas tree. Once I had it all filled in, then I'm going to darken that green a little bit more with a little bit of black, and I'm going to tap right underneath the limbs just to create some shadows. And then I'll let that fully dry. To decorate the tree, I'm going to add some pure gold, some antique gold, and a little bit of barn red so that we can make some ornaments. But before I add the ornaments to the tree, I want to add just a little bit of ribbon to this tree. So I'm mixing up a little bit of white and just a tiny bit of that creamy color, just so it's not stark white. And then I am using a really small liner brush and just adding some of this ribbon to the tree in different various places. And you don't need to put a lot of pressure on this, just kind of barely touch the canvas and just drag your ribbon along. Then once I finish the ribbon, I'm just going to use that same liner brush and same paint and start making little strings to add my ornaments. Then using another small brush, I'm just going to use some antique gold and make a little star up top first. Then I'll just add in my ornaments by using those same small brushes and the antique gold, pure gold, some red, and I also ended up using a little bit of the cream color and the white color just to place my ornaments from all those little ribbons. This is probably in the top 10 of my favorite things I've ever made, but I was able to pick this large nutcracker up from the thrift store for $2. And as you can see, he's a little worn and he is missing his hair, his beard, and unfortunately, he was also missing the toes of his boots. But all of this is fixable, and I just had to grab him because I'm sure you all know that I am obsessed with nutcrackers, and I had the perfect idea for him. But before I could do the idea, I did have to fix him. So I grabbed some air dry clay. Really simple fix is just replacing those toes on his boot. boots. So after I finished making the toes of his boots, I glued those down with some gel super glue, and I am going to let those dry down before I paint them. And while those are drying, I will go ahead and just start making over this nutcracker. So the first thing I did was go in and give him 2 coats of white chalk paint. If I would have had primer, I would have used that, but since I didn't have any on hand, I decided to use the white chalk paint as a primer because I'm going to be using some metallic gold paint and it's quite thin, so it definitely helps to have a top layer of paint for that to go over. So this is what it looked like once I was finished with those coats of white paint, and as you can see, I did cut his hat off because we are going to be replacing that hat. And to remove his hat, I just used my miter box saw and it took maybe 2 minutes to cut through it. Of course, before I could get to the fun part, I did have to finish making over this nutcracker. So after the white paint and cutting off his hat, I did go in with some black chalk paint to do his boots and the bottom part of the stand. And then here's where I'm going to grab some folk art antique gold and then some pure gold, and I just mixed it together to make the color for his jacket. So once that was done, then I had to go back in and do his face and his hands, and I'm using the color Warm Buff from Apple Barrel to do those. Now obviously I cut a whole bunch of making over this nutcracker out of the video and sped it up, but it was a pretty tedious process, not gonna lie about that, and it did take quite a while to repaint this entire nutcracker. So if you can find one that you already love to do this project on, that would be a great option as well. But also I do highly recommend this. It was a lot of fun to make him over. So here I am starting back on the details of the nutcracker, and I know you really can't see it in the video, but I could still kind of see where his previous painting was up under my painting, if that makes sense. So that's how I was able to tell where to put the little buttons and laces for his boots. And also here I'm starting on his face, and again it's exactly the same. Even though you can't see it on the video, I could still see where his cheeks were painted for the rosiness, and I could kind of make out the outline of his mustache and of course his eyes as well. So I'm just using some small paint brushes and different paint colors. I generally use the same colors that he already had on him, except for I did change the color of his eyes from blue to brown. And for his mustache and his eyebrows, I did use my black paint pen to do that outline before painting those in. So once he was all finished, then it was time to replace his hat, and I'm actually going to be using this Dollar Tree cloche and then this little round wood piece. I actually got this at Michael's and it ended up fitting the bottom of the Dollar Tree cloche perfectly. So I'm just going to use some gel super glue and attach the bottom part of the cloche to the top of that wood piece. Then once the glue had set, I'm going to go in and give these 2 coats of black chalk paint. I also wanted to give the nutcracker a little emblem for his hat, so I'm just using this little corner piece that I got from Amazon, and I'm going to paint it the same color as his jacket. Then I'm going to use some wood glue to attach the wood piece and the bottom of that cloche to the top of his head. It took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to put in this cloche. My original thought was a ballerina, and then I came across this Clara ornament holding a nutcracker on Amazon, and it happened to be the perfect size to fit in this cloche. So I got that, removed the little string that the ornament was hanging on, and replaced it with some black velvet ribbon. I used my hot glue gun to just melt a little hole in the top of this cloche, and then used a plastic needle to thread that velvet ribbon up through the top. and then pulled that through, and to secure it, I'm just going to tie a bow at the top of it. I didn't want to make this permanent by gluing the little Clara ornament in there just in case I ever want to change it. So this is just an easy way to do that. And then finally, I just glued that little emblem to the bottom part of the hat. As for his old hat, I definitely wasn't going to just throw this out, and it was kind of the perfect shape to make a little cowbell out of this. So I'm just starting off with one coat of black chalk paint, and then to make the little handle, I'm actually using this little piece that came off of an old drawer handle, and then this little ring is actually a curtain ring. I obviously wanted the curtain ring to stand up and not fall over, so I'm just using some gel super glue once I had it threaded through that little piece that came off the drawer handle. There was a little hole in the top of his hat, so I was able to just put some gel super glue down in there and just attach this right on top. Then I took this outside and I just kind of spritzed it with my Rust-Oleum gold spray paint, and then I'm gonna go over it with some of my Rub and Buff and just kind of make random circles with the Rub and Buff to give it some variation of the gold. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.